Hello. One of the biggest challenges in today's learning environments is capturing and maintaining students' attention. Think about it. Today's generations of students struggle with distractions like never before. Not only do teachers have the challenge of transferring meaningful learning to students to aid in their growth and development, they now have to do so while battling students' smartphones, mental health challenges, learning gaps resulting from the pandemic, and much more. What if I told you there was something that could help? A framework that could help structure your approach to teaching in a way that helps focus on specific instructional events to maximize your learning experiences. Would you use it? Hello, my name is Shantia Daniels, and I am honored to support STEP Azerbaijan's mission to enhance professional development for educators. The purpose of this screencast is to introduce you to Gagne's 9 events of instruction. You will learn why structured lesson planning is essential for student learning and explore each of the 9 events step by step. Lastly, you'll discover practical strategies for applying Gagne's model in your own classroom. By the end of this session, you'll be equipped with a clear framework to design more effective and engaging lessons. So let's get started. As I mentioned, by the end of this screencast, you'll be able to understand the importance of structured lesson planning and really explore how lesson organization impacts student learning. We'll also discuss and explain Gagne's 9 events of instruction, a step by step breakdown of the model. Next, you'll be able to apply Gagne's model to lesson planning and exploring practical ways to implement each event in a traditional classroom setting. And lastly, you will be able to adapt Gagne's model for different subjects and grade levels. You will also learn how to modify the approach based on teaching needs. So I'm excited and I hope you enjoy. You may be thinking, why does structure matter in lesson planning? Did you know that students forget 70% of what they learn within 24 hours without structure? Can you imagine the amount of double work that you have to do as a teacher? Well, what if you could minimize that? A good lesson structure gives students a clear path to follow and helps them connect new ideas step by step. It's like following a trusted map. When each part builds on the last, students are more likely to stay engaged and really remember what they've learned. This makes learning feel clearer and more manageable. Also, learning flows best when each step feels connected to the next. Simply, structured lessons guide students' focus and memory, as well as having a organized lesson plan reduces confusion and cognitive overload. Lastly, clear steps support diverse learning. Let's explore a little further. In the 1960s, Robert Gagne developed the 9 events of instruction. This was a guide for developing effective instruction for teachers. It outlines a series of events or structured activities that are followed in a specific sequence to facilitate learning. This method is still widely used today by instructional designers and educators globally. It allows them to easily apply instructional strategies that cover the foundation needed to help learners effectively learn and retain information. Gagne's 9 events of instruction gives us a proven framework to guide our teaching. It's not about organizing lessons, it's about creating a clear path for students to follow. Structure turns lessons into a story that students can follow and remember. How we do that is by Gagne's 9 events of instruction. As you see here, it starts with gaining the learner's attention, then stating learning objectives, ensuring that you stimulate recall by pulling on prior knowledge, then moving on to presenting new content and delivering information. Next, you provide guided practice, elicit performance, provide feedback, assess performance, and enhance retention and transfer. You ready? Well, not quite yet. What we'll do next is we will break down each of these 9 events so that you can understand what the event is, how to use it, and how to practically apply it in your classroom. Let's get started. Number 1, gain attention. Gaining attention at the start helps students tune in right away. They essentially lean in to listen for more. Think of it as setting the stage of what's to come. It helps students to become motivated and invested in the learning that's to come. To do this, you must identify the why for your learners. What would make them motivated? From there, you can use real world examples, storytelling, or visuals to gain their attention. You can start the lesson with a captivating question, a story, or multimedia presentation like a video that sparks their curiosity. For example, you can use a real world scenario, a surprising fact, or a relevant video to grab your students' attention. An example of this would be a science teacher who is attempting to teach their students about the ecosystem. To gain their attention, the teacher shows a dramatic video of an environmental disaster to get students thinking about the impact of human activity on nature. This is how you gain attention from the start. I want you to take a moment and think back to a lesson that went really well for your students. It went well specifically in gaining their attention, gaining the attention of the learners. What made it work? Pause here and use the template I've provided to write down examples of ways you have demonstrated gaining attention and how it went well. You've successfully captured your audience and gained your students' attention. Now it's time to state the learning objectives. Let students know what they'll learn. Objectives provide focus and also it helps to reduce anxiety. In order for successful learning to take place, students have to have a clear idea of what they are there to learn. If they have a clear notion, they will be more likely to apply their learning to your goals. To do this, you need to step back and take inventory of what you are going to teach. You can do so by filling in the blank. By the end of this lesson, learners will be able to what? Clearly communicate the lesson's goals to students so they know what they will learn and how it will benefit them. This helps set expectations and focus their attention. An example of this is if you are a science teacher again and you would like to write up a learning objective for your lesson. You can list it as by the end of by the end of today's lesson, you will be able to explain how photosynthesis works and its importance to the environment. Once you have informed your learners of the objectives, you will be able to move on to the next step. It's that simple. Next of Gagne's events is number 3, stimulate recall. This is where you're activating students' memory by linking new content with what they already know. By connecting new material to something students already know, we create stronger and more meaningful learning. Think of scaffolding as giving students the right tools at the right time to climb even higher. To apply this, you may connect new learning with students' previous experiences or their prior knowledge. You can use questioning techniques, you can use discussions, or quick review exercises. For example, before teaching a new math concept, ask, what do you remember about basic addition and subtraction? How does that relate to today's lesson on multiplication? Simple. Again, you are using their prior knowledge to get them to continue to engage in the lesson, but also it lays a foundation where you will then build on from there with the new content. Let's talk about what happens after this. Now that you have laid a solid foundation by gaining your students' attention, by getting them excited about the learning and establishing your objectives, and even laying a solid foundation by recalling or pulling out their previous learning before you give them new content. Now it's time to present the new information. You will use varied methods like slides, as I've done today, stories, visuals, and real world examples to deliver your new information. You can also deliver the new material using additional varieties of methods such as lectures, videos, demonstrations, or reading assignments. This will allow you to appeal to different learning styles, which is very important. An example of this is using a diagram to explain a new scientific process while simultaneously providing verbal explanations and examples to reinforce the learning. Remember, this will take place after you've already gotten them to dial in and to tie in previous information to the new learning that you're adding in. Once you do this, this will maximize the retention and the understanding of the new information that you're providing. Now let's talk about what happens from there. Number 5 of Gagne's events is providing guidance or guided practice. This is where you will model first, then practice together because collaboration builds confidence. Allow students to practice the new skill or knowledge that you've just provided them with your support. This could be in the form of collaborative activities, worksheets, or problem solving sessions where you walk around to offer your assistance. An example of this is maybe in a language class, having students practice speaking new vocabulary words in pairs while you are providing guidance on pronunciation and usage along the way. Again, modeling, grouping activities, and having interactive discussions is key with properly executing number 5 of Gagne's 9 events, guided practice. Next up is eliciting performance. Now is where we will have the students try it on their own. You can give them a chance to apply what they've learned by assigning independent or group activities where they are challenged to demonstrate their understanding. This could be through individual assignments, group projects, or even a presentation. An example of this is asking students to write a short essay or solve a problem individually to showcase their understanding of the material that you've just taught. Remember, this is a critical step in Gagne's 9 events because oftentimes learners have gained understanding, but they don't retain it if they don't practice. So ensure that you work in eliciting performance in your lesson planning and maximize your learning experience. But keep in mind, we're only on step 6 of the 9 events. So let's lean in and learn a little bit more. Event is providing feedback. Now that your students have taken the time to work through some assignments and activities, it is time for them to receive some feedback so that you can clarify on what's going well and even correct any confusion. Your feedback should be timely, clear, and encouraging. Remember, we should focus on growth, not perfection. It's about a process. Remember that. So, offer timely, constructive feedback on students' performance that helps reinforce correct understanding, and it also guides improvement in their continued learning. An example of this is after a group activity, providing feedback by discussing what worked well, what could be improved, highlighting specific contributions, and offering suggestions for enhancement. Remember, this is an important step as well because the feedback is what will help secure their learning and also the skills that they're building after the practice. Now let's talk about step 8. At the destination, now that we have made it to number 8 of Gagne's events of instruction. In this step is where you will assess the performance. You will use informal assessments to gauge understanding. You can do this by having formal or informal assessments to evaluate students' grasp of the material. This could take place in the form of quizzes, tests, observations, or even class discussions to gauge their understanding. Again, an example is for you as the educator to conduct a quick formative assessment, such as a 5-minute quiz or an exit ticket. This will help you check for comprehension before moving on to new content. Lastly, from here, we have step 9. So let's explore that a little further. The ninth and final of Gagne's 9 events is enhancing retention and transfer. Now, you're probably wondering, how do I enhance retention even further than what I've gained thus far? Well, what you would do first is to ask yourself, how will students use this information in the future? This is where you will create activities that encourages them to reflect, connect, and apply their learning in the future. You want to reinforce key concepts and help students apply their learning to new situations. This can be achieved through practice, real world applications, or by simply encouraging students to reflect on how the material relates to their daily lives. An example of this is after teaching a math formula, asking students to apply it to a real world problem, such as calculating the cost of items during a sale. Maybe this will help you make the lesson even more applicable. Now, we have gotten through all of Gagne's 9 events. By systematically applying these events, you can create structured, engaging, and effective lessons that cater to the diverse learning needs of your students. Now, let's talk a little bit further about application and practice for you. As you brainstorm how to apply Gagne's 9 events to your lesson planning, I want you to know that this is not a one size fit all framework, but it's flexible enough to adapt to various subjects and grade levels. Remember, good structure isn't just about organization, it's guidance for deeper learning. So dive in. Think about being flexible and applying these to various age groups and disciplines. Do a little bit more research. There are lots of resources out there that provide examples for language arts, science, math, and all kinds of subject matters. There's even some adjustments that can be made for large classes and limited resources. So lean in and adapt this model so it works best for you and your students. Now, let's take a moment to do some practice. Now that it's time for practice, I want you to take a moment and pause this video and again use the downloadable worksheet to plan a sample lesson using Gagne's steps. Through the help of AI, I have designed a lesson plan template that you can use to create your own lesson using Gagne's 9 events of instruction as a framework. It includes some targeted questions to help you brainstorm how you will incorporate the activities and follow this in an effective structure. Once you have filled out the lesson plan template, I recommend sharing it with a peer for feedback. So let's look at it together. As I've stated, I've taken the liberty of providing you with your very own Gagne's 9 events of instruction planning toolkit. This toolkit is equipped with a lesson planning worksheet, a self-reflection checklist, as well as an action plan template. Before I send you out on your own to use these resources, let's walk through how to utilize it to maximize your effectiveness. Let's get started with the lesson planning worksheet. Dive into this lesson planning worksheet. Again, this will help you apply Gagne's 9 events framework to your lesson plans. It asks you very purposeful questions to get you reflecting and to help you write out your lesson plans. First, an example of this is by starting with number 1, gaining attention. How will you capture students' interest? Ask yourself that question and write out your ideas on if you would like to tell a story to gain your students' interest, if you would like to play a video, or if you would like to propose a thoughtful question. Next, I would like you to lesson plan how you will inform the learners of the objectives. Again, it's very simple to write out by the end of this course, the students will learn X, Y, and Z. Go ahead and write that out, and you'll be one step further in having a lesson plan or a learning experience that is structured. Number 3, stimulating recall of prior knowledge. A question that you can ask yourself is, how will you connect to what they already know? What are some things that your students will probably already know about the subject matter, and how can you tie that in right before you present them with new content? Got it? Write those down. Number 4, present the content. What methods or tools will you use to deliver the new materials? Remember, be strategic and use various different methods and tools to deliver the content. That way you will appeal to the various different learning preferences that your students will possess. From there, provide guided practice. How will students practice with support? Go ahead and plan out ways that you will have your students practice what they've learned in a safe environment. From there, eliciting performance. How will they demonstrate understanding independently? After that, you must ensure that you have planned out providing feedback. This is where you will give them timely and constructive feedback. So plan ahead on how you will do that in your learning experience. Again, remember number 8 is assessing performance. Go ahead and plan out how you will check for understanding, whether that is a quiz, a test, an essay, whatever. You want to be prepared in ensuring that you have that in your learning experience. And then lastly, 9, enhance retention and transfer. How will students apply their learning to new contexts? Remember, it's one thing to teach them a new thing, and it's another to teach them how to apply it to future situations. This is your lesson planning worksheet. Again, you can pause here and write out one of your lesson plans, past or future, using Gagne's 9 events. In your toolkit is the self-reflection checklist. I would like you to use this checklist after planning or even teaching a lesson using Gagne's model. This is where you have a moment to self-reflect and evaluate how you did in applying this new model. Questions that you will ask yourself is, did I start the lesson with something engaging to gain attention? If so, what was that? Be sure to write it out so you can remember and use it the next time. Were the objectives clearly stated to the students? If so, great job. And again, practice and write out what you enjoyed and maybe what you would like to tweak for the next time. Next, I would like you to reflect on, did you activate prior knowledge before introducing new content? Remember, I know you are an educator at heart and you are excited to dive in and transfer knowledge to your students, but it's most effective if you activate prior knowledge before inducing or introducing new content. So reflect on your lesson planning or your lesson that you've delivered to see that you have completed this step. Next, was the content delivered in an organized and accessible way? That is key to ensure that your lesson was something that the students could follow and it was well structured. From there, you should ask yourself, did I provide enough opportunities for guided practice? That way, the students have already applied what they've learned in safe environments. Also, did students have time to practice independently? Did I give meaningful, timely feedback during the guided practice scenarios? And from there, was student learning assessed during or after the lesson? How do I know that they are on their way to mastering the knowledge and the skill sets that I've just laid a foundation for if I don't assess it? And then lastly, did I encourage application and reflection to support retention? Utilize this self-reflection checklist as often as possible to ensure you master incorporating all of Gagne's 9 events into your lessons. Don't forget, there's one more resource in the toolkit, and we'll discuss that next. Now that you have utilized the lesson planning worksheet to apply Gagne's model, and then also delivered your first lesson and even self reflected on your progress, now it's time to make some revisions. I would like for you to choose one lesson using this worksheet to revise your lesson plan with Gagne's model. You will use the following prompts to guide your further planning and your corrections to your lessons. You can start by specifying the subject and topic and the grade level that you are teaching. Some questions that you will ask is, what will you do to improve engagement in your opening? How will you make objectives more visible or student friendly? What specific strategies will you use to activate prior knowledge? And even what resources or methods will enhance your content delivery? Next, in revising your lesson, you can ask yourself, What are some activities that you'll design for guided and even independent practice? How will you provide feedback and assess performance differently? And how will you encourage retention and future transfer of learning? Lastly, what is the timeline for implementing these changes and how will you measure success? Remember, utilizing these resources and tools in this toolkit will help you apply what you have learned and then also adapt this model and this framework to your subject matter, to your grade level, and to your lessons that you've even already planned out for past, current, and future classes. This is not a one size fit all, but these resources will help you maximize your learning experiences and make you an even more effective educator. Remember, it's about structure and about the learning experience. So let's wrap up with some key findings that we have discussed today. As we wrap up, remember that structured lessons do more than just organize content. They guide students through a learning journey. So, key point one, structured lesson planning enhances student engagement and learning. Using a clear framework like Gagne's night events helps students stay focused, build connections, and retain information, specifically new information, more effectively. Key point two that we've discussed was that Gagne's night events provides a practical, step-by-step guide for planning instruction. Each event, from gaining attention to promoting retention, serves a specific purpose in supporting how students learn. And lastly, we discussed Gagne's model as being a flexible plan, but something that can be adapted and molded for any subject, grade level, or teaching style. By tailoring each event to fit your classroom needs, you can create powerful, personalized learning experiences that make learning even more effective. Remember, learning builds best when each step feels connected to the next. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you're excited to start using Gagne's model to create clear, engaging lesson plans for your students. When students know what's coming, they can focus more on understanding, not guessing. Thank you for your participation. And remember, I challenge you to apply Gagne's model in your next lesson. Thank you.